woke up today to find out that a content creator by the name of Kr1tical with 16 million subs has gotten cancelled. He decided to step down from the official podcast and Red Thread, wants to go on an indefinite hiatus to scale back his time spent on the internet. We obviously wish him the best, for everyone to respect his decision, and for all to know that the show will always be open for him to drop by and talk shop should he wish to return. The official podcast, Red Thread, and Criminally Stupid are not going anywhere in light of this announcement. So what exactly did get him cancelled? I mean, YouTubers that have around 16 million subscribers come equipped with PR teams, they come equipped with people giving them talking points. It's very difficult for such a person to get cancelled. Well, apparently, he had a conversation with another content creator by the name of Sneako, and there was a point where he believed that he had a gotcha on Sneako, but Sneako managed to turn it around so hard that Kr1tical did not manage to recover from that.
My definition is anything under 18. If you're under
That's
18,
exactly
you're
what a child is.
Yeah, I think that is a great line in the sand. If you are under 18, you are a child.
Your scenario earlier was if a 16 and a 21-year-old, both parties were if the father was okay with it, the mother was okay with it, why not? Tell me a reason why that's wrong. Because you're
one
getting...
is a child, one is not a child. That's the point.
Do you believe that somebody can go through hormone therapy? Can they change their gender if they're a child?
I think that's totally fine as long as everyone is consenting, as you agree with.
Okay, so as long as everyone...
If your parents are okay with it and you are okay with it, I think that's totally a familial decision to make, yeah.
Okay, so a child can cut their penis off and take hormone blockers and change their biology forever, but they can't get married?
Now, the first question is, why wasn't Sneako himself getting cancelled? I mean, after what happened with Dr. Disrespect, why was it that people were that outraged at what Sneako said? And the answer to that is that he was talking about marriage in this specific instance. He wasn't talking about hookup culture, he was talking about marriage. And while many people were accusing Sneako of being a pedophile and wanting to have sex with underage people, from the conversation, at least the way that I got it, is like, should two 17-year-olds be able to get married? And the answer is that this is not an extreme position to have in most places around the world, including the United States. Like, as you can see here, the age of consent for marriage in many of these places are actually under 18. So what Sneako is saying, even if you disagree with it, the objective reality is that in many parts of the United States, it is not an extreme statement. And when you go to Europe, you will see that it is even less extreme. Like, for instance, in my country, the age of consent for marriage is even lower. But there is the caveat that is very important to mention of Romeo and Juliet laws. So we're not talking about like a 16 marrying a 45-year-old. We're talking about like a 16-year-old marrying someone appropriately close to his age. It would fall under a Romeo and Juliet law, and this is true for most of Europe. It is true for the United States in most places. It is also true for the Middle East. And take into account that Sneako is a Muslim. So it doesn't really matter if you agree with him or not. The reality is that his take is not that extreme, because it's actually happening in most parts of the world. I would say that even most of 50% of the world. What Sneako said in this particular conversation is not something that would shock people. Now, it does shock people on the internet, of course, but I would not consider it similar to the Dr. Disrespect case, where you have a man that's married, where he is decades older than the person he is allegedly messaging inappropriately. Now, this is understandable why people are outraged that it causes a public scandal, and on top of that, it can even be illegal based on the types of conversations that were exchanged, because we haven't seen them yet. So I don't think that is compatible with the statement that Sneako was made. Now, the views of Sneako outside of the realm of marriage, or what he would say if you have like a 15-year-old that is forced to marry someone that's 45. I don't know those views. He hasn't expressed them. And if he were to express them, like, maybe he would get canceled. I don't know. Like, I'm just analyzing this particular interview between Kr1tical and Sneako. So, the interesting part, and this is where you reveal some of the left-leaning hypocrisy, is that, okay, I mean, I'm on the side that people who are underage should not be able to consent, right? Like, I'm on board with that. I completely agree. Now, because we live in an international community, the age laws differs from country to country, state to state. Depending on your take, you may get canceled or you may not. But if you say that, okay, well, this is my line, 18. Perfect. Okay, 18 is the line. I agree. Very well. So people under 18 cannot consent, right? 17-year-olds fall under that category, so they cannot. But if you tell me that they can't consent to marriage, however, they can change to life-altering surgery or puberty blockers, well, you have a little bit of a mental disconnect there. Like, it's either both or none of them. You can't pick and choose. You can't be in the cafeteria of consent where you're like, okay, I like this, but I don't like that. Like, it's gotta be consistent. Especially when you go on a stream and start moralizing to people and preaching to people about moral issues, you're getting yourself into that situation. Like, if you want to tell other people how to live your life, then you need to show that you're consistent across the board. And going back to what I said, that what Sneako expressed, while it can be shocking today and in some places of America, historically, culturally, and geographically speaking, it is not that shocking. Like, it's not going to shock people from Europe. It's not going to shock people from the Middle East. It's not going to shock even certain people from the US. But to suggest that minors, especially like children, in the case of Moist Critical, can consent to life-altering surgery or life-altering medication, that is actually extreme. Like that is extreme even for Europe, it's extreme for China, it's extreme for India, it's extreme in most places. And on top of that, even countries that were at the forefront of allowing this to happen, like Britain, for instance, are recently changing their tune. They're recently deciding that, well, maybe actually it's not such a good idea. So even the most progressive nations on earth are starting to reconsider this take. Which is why Moist Critical is getting canceled and Sneako isn't. Again, I want people to understand that when it comes to marriage, I do not share Sneako's views. Like, this has to be mentioned because it's in the internet. I know that some people may not even watch the end of the video. I wouldn't want my son to marry at that age. But I do agree with the current legislation in Romania, which seems to be 16 plus 5 years for Romeo and Juliet laws. Like, that is something that I agree with. The law in my country, I'm happy with it. It's good. I still wouldn't want my son to marry at the age of 16, though. I still think it's a little bit too young. Preferably, I would like him to have a job first and to be able to sustain himself before he starts a family. And the way I think is how probably most Europeans think, which is why they weren't that bewildered when they heard Sneako's arguments. And if you go into the comment section, you'll see that most people are against Moist Critical, which apparently he's stepping down. So I guess like this confirms it that Sneako did win that debate. Whether you agree with him or not, like, this is important to mention. I'm not saying that everyone agrees with Sneako, but what I am saying is that what he said isn't that extreme when you apply it to the world population and when you apply it in a historical context. But what Moist Critical said is actually extreme. It is actually incredibly extreme. So that's why you have the current situation. But I'm generally curious to hear what you guys think, and I'll see you in the comment section. Take care.